OPIN008. What is that? 8? That was 9. It's 8. It's 8. I'm here with Roger Hodgkins
Michael Hodges
from the band Supertramp. No,
Aerosmith.
Supertramp. You remember him?
I do remember.
I wanted to put a joke in there.
That's good.
I've been thinking about it.
You threw a curveball and I swung at it already.
Yeah. So, Mike, introduce yourself. We're here at Seaside 429 in Swansboro. And Mike has an advantage. He's watched all the videos. I don't know if anybody else can say that.
I have watched all the videos, and I was very impressed, and that's why I reached out to you with interest of doing one with you. I had the great pleasure of visiting Newport Lodge maybe 4 weeks ago or so, and that's when I found out about them. And over the next 3 or 4 days, I watched all the videos that were up, and they were interesting. I learned a lot about brothers that I had known for years, and I just learned more about them. I knew Ray Thomas, for instance, was a past master. I did not realize he had served it twice in the East. And Ray's just a great guy. He's one I truly try to emulate in my Masonic life. So I'm Mike Hodges, a past master here at Seaside. I was master in 2019. I've been a Mason since 1987, and I've enjoyed it. I've met a lot of friends, a lot of brothers that I would not have met if it wasn't through Masonry, and just made some great, great friends like you. And it's just been great. I guess to tell a little bit about myself and how I got started in Masonry, and then you can ask me whatever you'd like to ask me.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll start with the personal life aspect. I've been married to Barbara for 44 years now. But
wow, that's good.
That is good. It's a good start. But the fun part is when we go to parties, I still like to introduce my wife as the first wife.
Nice.
Now that just raises eyebrows. People start looking around like, is there another wife here? But she's learned how to play the game. She now introduces me as her current husband. So it's fun. I've just the best thing in the world in my life is my wife. We have one daughter, April. She went to Wake Forest University. Then she went to Athens, Greece, and got her dual masters. And then she went to California, worked for a while. But the cost of living was so high there that she's back in Athens, Greece, and absolutely loving it. So very proud of her. She's accomplished some really, really neat things, and glad we were able to give those opportunities to her. My parents separated and divorced when I was 11. So my father lived at Colonial Heights, Virginia, which is about 20 miles south of Richmond. So I didn't get to see my dad much because we lived in Dunn, North Carolina, which is about halfway between Raleigh and Fayetteville. But one year I went to visit my father when I was about 13, and I knew my father was a Mason, but at 13 I really didn't know much about it. But I heard my father tell this story to someone else, and I never forgot it. But my father did heavy construction, so back in the late 50s, those guys kind of had to go where the jobs were. And he was in Georgia working one day, and he was a Mason. But a man pulled into the field. After they would get off work, my dad and his buddies would go down to the local filling station. Now they call them gas stations. Back then they were filling stations. But my dad and his buddies would go down to the filling station and just sit and talk and drink a bottle of pop or whatnot. Well, one day this man pulled in the filling station with a bad tire on his car. And the man that owned the car did not have enough money to buy a new tire, and he was trying to get back home. I don't know just how far away it was, but quite a ways apparently. So the man that owned the car and the man that owned the filling station went inside. They identified each other as Master Masons. The man that owned the filling station went out to his car, opened his trunk, took his spare tire out, and put it on the brother's car and sent him on his way.
Wow.
My dad said about 2 weeks later, they were back down at the filling station, and this big freight truck pulled in, unloaded this great big box. When they opened the box, there was only 2 things in it: the brother's spare tire and a note that simply said, "Thank you, my brother." And at 13, that made such a great impression on me. It's like, I want to be a part of that one day where I can help somebody that I don't know, but that I do know. So then years went by, but then in 1987, June 1987, I started my degree and became a Master Mason in June of 87. I was in the movie theater business my entire life. So working in the theater, we were always working at night. Made it hard to be active in the lodge, but when I retired, then I moved my membership from Carolina Beach, where I was became a Master Mason, up to Seaside, and it's been, I guess, 10 years now, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Started in the chairs, and like I said, I was Master in 2019. I never wanted to be a past Master. I tell people that I did want to be Master one day because I felt that my intellect, my conversation skills, my people skills would lend themselves to the Lodge having a good year, and Seaside had a very good year. We did a lot. There was more I wanted to do, and you look back, it's like, how did a year go by that fast? But a couple of things I was proud of during my year, and I will tell you that I'm an Irishman, and I've kissed the Blarney Stone, don't you know, so I can talk. So interrupt me anytime you have something to ask me.
Well, I do interrupt sometimes, and later I regret it, but...
Particularly when my wife is talking to me, that's when I regret it the most. The year I was Master here, I had reached out to Max Sigmund when he was Deputy Grand Master, and invited him to have his district meeting at Seaside, what would be 2019 when I was Master. And Brother Mac, most worshipful Brother Mac, now accepted and held his district meeting for Districts 4 and 7 here. Honored to have him, and that was one of those moments I'll just never forget. This is actually my father's ring, and he gave it to me the night I got my 3rd degree. And I remember sitting in the east with most worshipful Brother Max Sigmund, and I turned my father's ring around my finger twice, and I honestly teared up because I knew how proud my father would have been for me at that moment. My dad was one of those Masons that would have helped anybody do anything they needed help with, but would have probably never gone through the chairs. So for me to be sitting in the east with the Grand Master of North Carolina, I know that's something he would have been proud of. But then also that year, we were fortunate. We had not 1 or 2 or 3, but we had 4 past Grand Masters come speak.
Wow. And
it was each of them were very interesting. Most worshipful Brother Dan Rice, great speaker. Dan Rice was raised in our children's home. I'm not sure if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't know that.
He did. He came from very, very difficult early life. In fact, when most worshipful Brother Rice was here.
And this is Oxford.
Oxford Children's Home that the Masonic Lodges support. It's in North Carolina. Founded in 1872, if I remember correctly. But to start with, when he was speaking, he truly had me tearing up hearing about how hard his early life was. And then other times he'd have me just laughing out loud, sitting in the east, which felt a little awkward. But one story he told was, of course, as teenagers, they're all assigned duties at the children's home. Well, he was assigned to the dairy farm. At that time, we had cows and whatnot. Well, he said, about the time I started getting interested in girls, they assigned me to the dairy farm. He said, and girls don't like the smell of cows. And I remember laughing so hard. But, also Billy Deal was an outstanding speaker. Leonard Seyfried is always a great speaker. And who am I leaving out? I did make some notes, brother, in case I forgot something I was going to mention.
Sure, I know Leonard. Every time you ask him how he's doing, he says, better than I deserve.
Yes, he's a very, very humble man. Very humble man. And Speed Hallman was the other one. And Speed came when Seaside hosted the Onslow County Scholarship Fund, Masonic Scholarship Fund. He was our speaker that night, and it worked out very well. His wife, Susan, came with him, and my wife and Susan went downtown Swansboro while we had the meeting and whatnot. So it was just a great evening. But brothers I like to, that I've learned a lot from, worship Brother David Holland. David Holland was master of Seaside the year I was born, 1958.
Wow.
And when he and I found that out, we just struck up a friendship. And we became very close friends over the years, and particularly the last 3 or 4 years of his life were very difficult. David was in his 90s and health problems, one right after the other. But I'd go visit him down on the farm, and he was very interesting, had a lot of good stories to tell from the past, Masonically and just rural life in eastern North Carolina. But at the same time, David and I were very close, but he never cut me any slack. David always sat in the north, in the center seat there. The year I was junior warden, of course, I was sitting in the south, and I made a little mistake. I mean, a little mistake. As soon as the lodge was over, though, I looked over at David, and David simply said, and it's like, uh-oh. But now what I really enjoyed about David, there were brothers milling about. He walked me over to the empty corner of the lodge, and he whispered in my ear, you don't do it that way, you do it this way. And again, whispered good counsel in a worthy brother's ear. And that's something, it's not technically a tenet of our fraternity, but I think it should be, because, you know,
Well, I mean, you know, in the most friendly manner, remind him of his errors.
Exactly.
So, that's pretty much a tenet, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
Well, I take everything really seriously. I've got this thing with, you know, it looks on paper. So, you know, I was in the Marine Corps, and you know, I'm a citizen, you know, United States of America. We've got the Constitution. We've got all these things on paper.
Right.
Looks great.
Right.
And then there's people.
Right.
That's the problem. But in Masonry, it's the best I've ever seen.
Yes.
It's the best I've ever seen, where I mean, it's not even all on paper, but you convey this moral integrity and these principles in such a way, and we hold each other to them.
Yes.
And I'd love that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And I agree 1,000% with what you said, but also do it in that friendly, brotherly way.
I'm
Again,
working on that.
Whisper good counsel. You know, there's no point in embarrassing anyone, be it in the lodge or uptown. Just, you know, whisper good counsel in a worthy brother's ear. So, brothers that I've tried to emulate through my Masonic life recently, particularly, were David Holland, Mike Powell over at Lafayette, past master, certified lecturer, and Mike's very, very respected throughout our district. Mike's another one. He and I are good friends, but if I make a mistake, he'll motion me over at the end of the meeting and point out what I did, and that's good. That's fine. There's another brother that I'd like to mention, Leonard Madonka. You may know Leonard. He's now master of Knights of Solomon.
Okay.
But Leonard's a past...
And that is the motorcycle one.
It's the motorcycle club, but you don't have to have a motorcycle or ride, but most of the brothers in Knights of Solomon do. And they only meet 4 times a year, and they go to different lodges around the state to hold that meeting, so they meet other brothers from around the state.
I had heard at Grand Lodge they've got a building now.
Oh, I okay. I had not heard that. Yeah.
They were talking about it. I mean, they all come in. They've got their jackets. I guess I got the starter jacket. I'm not in Knights of Solomon, but I was looking at the Sojourners.
Yes.
And they're meet, I guess, around Jacksonville area. So I'm looking into that. But you know, just that camaraderie, and brotherhood. Just, you know, as much as I can without spending too much money.
Yeah, right.
And
you got to find that balance.
and the time, right?
Yes,
and you know, I appreciate, you know, your help with what we're doing here with OPIN and all those brothers that you mentioned. You know, we should get interviews together.
Yes, Mike Powell and Leonard Madonka would be a great one. Leonard Madonka is such a humble man, brother. I'm going to tell the story real quick, and hopefully you will be able to reach out to Leonard and interview him. But long story short as I can make it, Leonard was going early one morning back in January to meet someone. He saw this elderly man hitchhiking on the side of the road. This is a cold, blustery, rainy, wintry day. Leonard stops, goes over and chats with the man, invites the man into the restaurant for a cup of coffee. The man explains that he's trying to get to Morehead City to see his sister that had fallen and broken her hip, and she was in a nursing home. Leonard said, I've got to meet someone, but if you can wait just a few minutes, I'll be glad to take you to Morehead City. So he met, in fact, it was Mike Powell over at the lodge, and then Mike and Leonard took the man up to Morehead City, gave him time to visit with his sister. When Mike brought him back, the man was actually from Florida. When Leonard brought him back to Jacksonville, Leonard gave him money for a hotel room and for food that night. And that's brotherly love. And this man was he was not a brother, but still it shows brotherly love that Leonard had for a perfect stranger. And that's someone that I want to emulate. So Leonard's a great guy. If you get the chance, I can give you his contact number. He'd be a fantastic interview. Very, very humble man. But ask me questions, my friend. What
Well, we've covered Masonic and I mean your life. The final part, I had some other parts I wanted to go into, but we can get to the juicy controversial. Have you seen this? Right, you've been prepared, and Fred had a really good answer, and I hope everybody doesn't give his answer, but he doesn't. He tries not to worry about the things he can't change. But so I've got to change it. I'm like, what can we? We've got these issues. What is the issue?
For me, honestly, it's our national debt.
The debt.
The debt. One day that cookie is going to crumble, and the Depression of the 20s is going to look like a Sunday picnic. And both parties are guilty. They just keep adding to the debt and adding to the debt and adding to debt, thinking it's an endless supply. And sooner or later, it's going to catch up with us, and that really concerns me.
Yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube, and there's economists, these just Nobel Peace Prize winning people. You can go and look and see what they're saying about these issues. And me personally, I think I can get a little bit more than 50% of what they're saying. And it's like it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. You can't just keep redoing the dollar and reestablishing it and printing more money. It's gonna collapse.
Yes,
it eventually will collapse, and the spending is it's like out of control. And I mean, I like certain issues that I watched the president's address. I don't think it was State of the Union. I think it was more political and campaigning. But he goes against this MAGA. And I'm like, MAGA? I didn't even know what he was talking about until later I saw an interview where they were talking about these red hats. And the hats say, "Make America Great Again." And then it dawned on me, that's MAGA. I'm like, what? Wait a second. You're against making America great again? No, we're just against the slogan that Trump uses. Yeah. And I mean, this isn't like actual lodge, and it's not actual politics I'm talking about. But regarding the spending, we really should focus on our own country.
Yes.
We need to start with ourselves in our hearts, and then our neighbors, and then spread from there. And it's sometimes as simple as clean your room.
Yes.
And go clean the garage. Take care of your backyard. Don't make your front yard is the only thing that's presentable. Yeah. I mean, there's these concepts, right?
Yes.
There's just these different concepts. Like all you're doing is presenting to the world fake. Like, I guess that's what they do on Facebook, which I don't, no offense, but my wife's does enough Facebook for both three of us.
Yeah, because I don't Facebook either.
I just, I do what I can. I've got YouTube, who I guess is supporting me and hasn't canceled me yet. And I, trying to get the Masonic opinion, which is going to be mostly older white men. Mm-hmm. And have you ever thought of this this critical race theory?
I try to avoid, shall we say, controversial issues. Too many times people can move one thing or the other to fit their viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, I haven't quite understood it.
Right.
But I like to make things as simple as possible so I could explain it to a child. And the simplest definition, the simplest understanding, and comment below and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're trying to say that the founding fathers were malicious and, white tyranny, like, I guess it's like today, where politics and, everybody's just money and greed, and they're trying to say that the original founding fathers were like this.
But again, they absolutely were not, because the majority of the founding fathers of our country were well-to-do men who would have survived just fine under English rule. But they knew we needed a better path for our country, and it's really alarming if you go back and look at how they sacrificed and how many of them wound up just absolute paupers because they sacrificed so much for the freedom America has.
Yeah, and that's truth. And I mean, I'm not going to find somebody here from the 1400s to interview or anything, but I mean, there are people who have really studied history, and in my lifetime, it's changed.
Yes, yeah.
And that's something that we have to combat. We have to stand up. And then, you know, some of the other issues are, you know, what the indoctrination in schools and stuff. It's I don't know how they got away with it. I don't know how they started doing it, how we were quiet, and it became such a huge issue.
Well, along those lines, another thing I'm very proud of my year as master is I wanted to invite the district deputy grand master of the Prince Hall brothers to come speak at Seaside one night. Knew it could be a little controversial, so I asked some of the older brothers in the lodge about it, and everybody thought it was a good idea. But one brother did say, well, some of the old-timers might not like that. And I simply said, well, then those old-timers need to stay at home that night. So I reached out to Jeff Barrett, who was district deputy grand master for them for several years, 7 or 8 years, and had conversations with him, invited him, and he came that night, and 40 Prince Hall brothers from all over Carteret County and Onslow County came. And honestly, Michael, it was the most fun Masonic meeting I've ever been to in my life.
Absolutely. So what year was that?
2019.
And I mean, it came down from the Grand Lodge, the incorporation around that same time.
A few years earlier, but yeah,
Okay.
their Grand Lodge and our Grand Lodge recognized each other as Masons, which we are.
Yeah,
so, you know.
Absolutely.
In talking to Jeff that night, though, he and I were standing in the foyer there talking, and I told him, I said, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say this. I feel very bad the way some things were in the past. I said, but I can't change that. All I can do is try to make, I said, all I can do is try to make today and tomorrow better. And he was very humble, and he simply said there were mistakes made on both sides.
Sure.
And he let it go at that. And I thought that was a very gracious statement from Jeff Barrett. And he's someone that I still stay in touch with and just think the world of him. He's a great Mason, a great guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like to do all controversial. I like to do, happy stuff and tell some jokes. Well, you want to go ahead and sing a song?
Sure. Well, I tap dance better than I sing if you're ready for it.
Oh, I used to love some of that music. I couldn't even name a song now by Supertramp, but it is the same last name though, isn't it? Hodges.
Yes.
Hodges.
He's my second cousin on my father's side.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. He's actually British and he's very old, but he's still touring. And I can mention stuff. So I feel an obligation if I put tags on the video, I at least should mention it in the video.
Yes.
And all the different tags, draw different people. But I'm still new. This is our 8th video, and we're doing the best we can, and I want to do them on a regular basis. I want to get 50 subscribers so we can go live and not have to worry about the time limits and stuff. And you can get the comments, so people can write in comments and ask questions while it's live.
Right.
So that's a whole new show.
Sure.
So that'll be interesting when we can do that, and get more involved in it. I don't really do much. I just make it available.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I do. And my helper is waiting on the refrigerator repairman or something. Doc, well, shout out to Doc. We love you. We just you need to free up a little more time for I don't like to reschedule, and I do not cancel. I'll show up. If I say I'll be there, I'll be there. And my mother taught me that.
Absolutely.
And early. So it's great spending. I mean, there's more. What else you want to talk about? You got your notes? You made notes?
Well, there was another brother I wanted to mention. That was Ronnie Townsend. Ronnie Townsend wound up a master here at Seaside. But the year I moved my membership to Seaside, Ronnie was the brother that got me involved. Ronnie was the brother that if we were doing a fundraiser, he would say, "Hey, Mike, ride with me over to the lodge to get a pan." He didn't need help me moving one pan, but he knew he could get me involved. "Hey, Mike, help me move this table. Ride with me to get the ice." And then, of course, you get to know one brother, you get to know more brothers. So I tell everybody, I strongly encourage everybody to emulate Ronnie Townsend and Leonard McDonald. They're two great, great guys.
So just getting people involved on every little...
Yeah, because you'll be more and more comfortable. If you're comfortable at lodge or church or wherever it is you're going and you're meeting people and you feel like you're part of it, you'll come back. But if no one talks to you and you're just kind of off by yourself, again, be it lodge or church or whatever, you tend to sort of stay home. So Ronnie was fantastic in getting me involved.
Well, that really brings up a good subject. You know, we went through the COVID and nobody was going anywhere, and that fellowship, that what do they call it in the Bible? Fellowship? Mm-hmm. Do not neglect the assembling of yourselves together.
Right.
And it's important for your survival.
Yes.
And to grow and to mature, like iron sharpens iron,
right,
type of thing. And I just found that in masonry, the best I've ever found.
Absolutely.
And I've been in the Marine Corps, I've been in unions, which was kind of the opposite. And no offense, but everything changes. I actually used to be a Democrat back in the 80s or something.
Yep.
And things change.
Yes.
That's one constant. Change, and what was the other? Taxes?
Yes.
Death. There's three things. But we got to help each other. We have to help each other. We have to have a system. And I mean, masonry is all about the family.
Yes.
I would have an issue with being so giving until I became a Mason, and they, instructed me to give as generously as you can.
Yes.
Without injury to yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Or your family. And that's putting it into a proper perspective.
Yes.
And there's just so many things like that Masonry has contributed to my life, and I just deeply appreciate it.
Well, and along those lines, I'm one that would never get a tattoo. But if I were, it would be the phrase, "I am third." Are you familiar with it?
No.
God is first, others are second, I'm third. And if you can live by that creed, you're going to live a good life.
I should tell my tattoo story. How much time do we got?
We got about 2.5 minutes.
So I'm living in Hawaii, and I'm going through some things, but I'm always trying to help people. And there was this, I won't do his name, but he was a addictions counselor, and he was confiding in me about his addiction with promiscuity.
Right.
And he had, had motorcycles, and he had tattoos on his arm. And I get these, just ideas occasionally. And I'd actually thought about it. I said, well, I want to get this tattoo. I want to get this big tattoo, big cross on my back, big cross on my back. And it says, thy will be done. Thy will be done, right across my back with a big cross.
Yeah.
And he gives me the strangest look. He takes his jacket, he takes his shirt off, and he shows me that tattoo.
Already on his back.
Already on his back.
How about that?
And the thing that hit me is like, it's not going to save you. It's not going to help. It's not going to help. I mean, he's out in the hot tubs at the Hyatt with various women, and he's got this tattoo on his back. So, hey, I didn't mention your name, but if you want to comment below and say anything, that happened. That happened, and it happens to me all the time. The divine providence or whatever, word of wisdom or something. But it demonstrates, it comes out in just various ways. It's I kind of like God's sense of humor.
Yes, yes.
And it's amazing how, well, I mean, I made a short video about stepping in dog poop.
Haven't seen that, but
It's not very good. But, you know, we've got the schnauzers, and we've got a great backyard. Everything's wonderful. And, you know, we go up and pick it up, and just missed one misstep. And it was like the first time that I'd had that issue. And instead of being devastated, I just went into, you know, cleanup mode and, you know, get everything contained. And it just got worse and worse. And I'm trying to just remain calm and get her done. And yeah, so that video's out there. It turned into a huge mess, throwing stuff away. And I mean, the wife's got very high cleanliness levels.
Right,
I mean, you know, if I step on something, like there's a towel for the dogs there, I stepped on it, and there's the dogs.
that's the timer.
That's you know, had to clean that up. Well, watch that other video, and we appreciate everybody watching these. And if you want to get an interview, you don't necessarily have to be a master mason. I'll put anything out there. We keep it you know, YouTube friendly. I mean, they're not necessarily made for children, but we try to do what we can to help people, to help young men, to help old men. It doesn't matter. We're out to help people, and in America, and it'll spread. We keep our house in order.
Right.
We keep our house in order, and then we'll be able to help others more. I wish this remote worked, but I've got to run up here and press this button. Thank you so much, YouTube. God bless, and God bless America.